Welcome back to Tonight Live. I'm Dan Wootton, and it's time for Uncancelled now, where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Tonight, I'm joined in the studio by the Welsh stand-up comedian Abi Roberts to discuss why it's practically impossible to be a right-wing comic in the current climate in the UK. Now, Abi has first-hand experience of being targeted by the woke mob for having views that aren't typical of the lovey industry. Just last year, Abi was dropped by her gutless agent for publicly supporting JK Rowling after the Harry Potter author was criticised by trans activists for her view on women's rights. And Abi was later bullied and vilified on Twitter by promoters and fellow comics for her involvement in Laurence Fox's mayoral campaign. Abi feels that she's become an outsider in the world of comedy and that her passion is pushing back hard against, as she says, dangerous woke nonsense. So Abi, so great to have you here. It's really disturbing to me that you feel like you literally can't survive as a comedian if you don't have those hard left views.
Yeah, it's really difficult, Dan. I mean, I started to notice this change, you know, sort of the middle of last year, and then when I made the comment on Twitter, I wasn't really, I was a bit of a Twitter user, but then I made that comment and then got the phone call from my agent. I missed the call, called him back, there was no answer, then I emailed him, and then nothing. It's literally like I'd said the most awful thing, which is that there's two sexes, men and women. Who knew that was controversial? And then other things have happened, like you mentioned with Laurence Fox.
Because at that point you were considered to be anti-trans. Is that what the argument was?
I think at that point, yeah, exactly. It was like she's got a view which is a very rational view that people have had for many years, but then because I'd come out and put my head over the parapet. And nobody else had. I have to say, no other female comedian that I know of had sort of done that. It was like, get her. She's trouble because now she's gonna. And then I just thought, to hell with it. I'm just gonna say what I think. What's the worst that can happen?
I mean, it's just so disturbing to me what's happening in comedy, Abi, because this is meant to be a group of liberals and free thinkers, and it feels like it's becoming increasingly a group of people who look to someone like Mary Whitehouse and want to have puritanical attitudes. I mean, just this week we had Jennifer Saunders, who's a comedian who I absolutely adore. I have no idea what her politics are, but she said that it would actually be impossible to make Absolutely Fabulous in 2021 because everyone would be looking at every line and saying you've got to get rid of this, and oh, this line's going to offend this person, and gay people will be offended, and it's just such a shame.
It is. I mean, you've got to. This is the weird thing about Ab Fab. Those characters. I mean, actually, I worked for Betty Jackson, the lady that designed the costumes. That was one of my first jobs, was to work for her. And let me tell you, everyone in that place, they were all like Eddie. But the daughter, Safi, she's become the person that judges everyone else. That's what's really weird. The daughter has become, everyone else has become like the daughter. Sort of the judgmental.
I know what you mean. And actually, at the time, the joke was on Safi for being so...
Precisely.
For being so dull and sort of closed-minded.
Yeah.
And this is happening to even big comedians, Abi, because Sacha Baron Cohen's characters have come under the microscope, people saying that Ali G is racist. And then just this week, we saw this move to cancel Keith Lemon. Mel Sykes, who's a presenter who I do have great respect for, actually. But she was very upset by these comments that Keith Lemon made about her at a TV recording, which she said were inappropriate. But again, I couldn't really get my head around that because I'm like, Keith Lemon is a character.
Exactly. He's a character.
The whole point of his character is to be offensive and to annoy people.
Yeah. I've seen Joan Rivers live. God bless her, before she died. I've seen Robin Williams. Those guys, you go to a show, you are meant to think, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. And you laugh and everyone feels relaxed. If you're there like this, going, oh my God, please don't say something, guess what? Everyone's going to be tense. Comedy is meant to relax people. You're meant to think, oh, we're in a room, we're all together. How bad can it get? Then you go outside and you live your life. It's meant to be an escapism. Now it's like some sort of Maoist regime. And I'm speaking about people that I've worked with who have started to target me for things I'm saying. And I'm like, hang on, who's the liberal here? Well, it certainly isn't you.
Do you have some comedians or some people who you've worked with who say, look, I either agree with you or I respect your right to have your different political views, but I'm not going to back you publicly because I'm too scared of being cancelled by connections with you?
It's like, I'm Abi adjacent. I better be careful what I say. Yeah, exactly like Laurence said to you the other night. People message me and say, yeah, oh my God, go Abi, you're fantastic. And then they go, yeah, I'm not going to actually say anything though, because I know it sounds very grandiose, but I'm prepared to put the mantle on. I lived in the Soviet Union on and off since the 80s. I've met people who've been in gulags. So, what's a comedian sticking their head above the parapet in comparison to that?
It's like a woke plague of intolerance.
Yeah. Exactly. This kind of stuff I'm getting, like somebody said, a couple of people who I was quite close to on Twitter publicly when I was supporting Laurence, his campaign, said, we haven't seen you for a while, are you okay? Like mentally okay. That's the kind of thing they used to say, like in Mao's China, or Soviet Union. Are you sort of maybe you should go into a loony bin and be reprogrammed, re-educated. That's
Simply
what we're talking
because you
about.
have a different political view.
Absolutely, different political view. And I've got lots of friends, by the way. We have varying views. outside comedy.
So it seems like within the comedy industry, there is no tolerance.
Not really. There's a few of us, and I'm sure you probably know some of them. There's literally like Leo Kearse, me, Andrew Doyle, maybe Nick. There's like a sort of handful of people who are like, we're. Do you know what's weird? It's almost like we're the counterculture. We're like the opposite of the Jimmy, the Tarbucks. That's what's odd. It's like they're the people, the left are the ones who should be playing golf in a Pringle sweater, and we're the right-on ones.
I know.
This is just, I can't believe I'm saying this.
The world has been turned on its
upside
head,
down,
Abby.
yeah.
There are some shining lights, though, in comedy. Ricky Gervais remains one.
Ricky, God bless him, has always been consistent. That's what I love about him.
Yeah.
He's never wavered. He's always stayed true to exactly what he said all the way through.
Which is sticking up for the right to offend. Correct.
Yeah, exactly. To say, don't take everything I say literally, guys. This is a comedy show. You come here to, like I said, we're gonna prick the balloons of pomposity. We're gonna laugh our heads off. We're gonna maybe just go over the line a little bit, and then we're gonna go outside and live our lives. And he's been consistent. He's never changed, Ricky.
Because
ever.
I've read your articles on this, and you say woke comedy is not funny.
No.
And we saw an example of this the other day with this BBC 3 so-called comedy series.
Yeah.
And actually it was sort of about shaming a white woman in hairdressers who didn't share the other characters' very politically correct right-on views. And I watched the clip and I was absolutely stunned that the BBC would consider it a comedy. There was nothing funny about it.
No, nothing funny about it. It was like, and when she sat there and she went, who's Bob Marley? Come on, who's writing this? Sorry, can I say shit? But seriously, who's writing it? Dan looks really nervous.
I actually don't know. We're post-Watershed. But right now, if I need to apologise, I will. But please don't think I'm joining the cancel culture, because I'm fine with it. But, apologies.
I'm being quite restrained. like I made an effort and dressed up for you. This is the kind of this is what I'd wear for a gig, by the way. Because I thought I'd turn up and be who I'd be normally, at a gig. But yeah, it's like who's writing that stuff? That's lecturing to people, isn't it? That's being in a lecture hall. That's not writing a sketch.
So how are you doing it now? Is there a way that you can continue your comedy on your own without the backing of an agent, for example? Is there an audience for right-wing comedy? And also, what about the BBC? Because they keep saying publicly that they do want to have comedy from all aspects of the political spectrum. I'm not sure if I believe them, but surely they should be putting you on their panels like now.
Like now, come on, guys. Do you know what's interesting? I'm going to shoot myself in the foot now. I'm not sure I'd want to be in an atmosphere where I'm the token. Everybody should have sort of heterodox views, you know, rather than it being like, that's Abi, that's her little place, you know, sort of like the right wing, you know, whatever, alternative view person. And then it's almost like, you know, then you've got Jeff Norcott and then Abi Roberts. And then everyone else is kind of like, you know, comedy should just be irreverent, naughty, a little bit like behind the, you know,
and
behind
shocking.
the door. Shocking.
And shocking.
Shocking.
You know, sometimes we should hear things in comedy gigs that we would never say.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In the street, but that's what makes us laugh or hoot with horror or groan sometimes, and that's what makes comedy great, and also what sometimes makes it really bad. Look, I want to bring in my panel on this because I'm sure they will have questions for Abi Roberts too. We've got Darren Grimes, Claire Fox and Becca Hudson here. Darren, do you feel like comedy is dead these days now that it doesn't accept alternative or, shall we say, non-hard left views?
Definitely. I mean, the way in which I think comedy has changed, even in my lifetime, where there are programmes that were put out when I was at school that wouldn't dare be aired today. They wouldn't, even in repeats of them, you know, you've got to have little sort of tags saying, well,
Trigger
this may
warning.
be offensive to some viewers.
Apparently even the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air now has a trigger warning. I mean, I have no idea why, but
well,
it does.
there we are, right? This stuff is getting cartoon. So I'm really worried that far from comedy, which it used to be in its truest form, in its truest sense, it did shock people, it did move people, it did bring about responses. But nowadays, no one's funny. And I'll tell you why that is. It's because everyone is self-censoring. Everyone is absolutely terrified that they'll be next to be dragged through by the Twitter mobs and lose their careers ultimately, end up in the same position that poor Abi's found herself in, which, by the way, you should all follow her on Twitter. She's hilarious. But all of these things, I think, sort of damage speech and debate and comedy and all of these other things. It's time to fight for free speech, I think. That's where I'm at on this.
Becca Hudson, where are you on this?
Well, it was interesting. Abby said the comedy's meant to relax everyone, but how relaxing is it if you're sitting there as the butt of the joke and kind of vulnerable groups or groups that get a really tough time
Don't
in
go
society
to a comedy
today
show.
Are you know, if they're the gags and they're the punchline, I mean, how relaxing is that? And then if comedy should be for everyone, isn't it easier to find jokes that aren't about people who are already having a really tough time?
I think, Becca, you're making the assumption there that when you said vulnerable people, I mean, the point about audiences is that they are as robust as anybody else, right? But because people now see themselves as vulnerable and victims all the time, everyone can take offence. I mean, which vulnerable people? I think the idea of irreverent comedy is the way to go. Mm-hmm. But I really liked your point, Abi, about counterculture, because I am a great supporter and admirer of Comedy Unleashed. That is a kind of club which, I mean, it was like a kind of secret pleasure to go to Comedy Unleashed nights. And I really object, by the way, Dan, or anyone else, to saying it's like the hard left versus the right on this question. Let me tell you, Comedy Unleashed was set up by two lefties, one of them, Andrew Doyle, in fact, is of GBNews, right? Yeah. And it was set up precisely because it said, it doesn't matter whether you're left or right, but it's for people who won't be offended at the drop of a hat, and it's for comedians who don't self-censor.
Yeah, but that's an outlier in the industry.
No, no, we know that, but all I'm saying is when you say hard left versus right, that's not really, it slightly misses it. It's this sort of sensitivity that says, don't offend anyone in the audience, and an audience that says, I'm not here to be offended. And then you think, well, comedy nights are notoriously riotous, right? That's the point. I don't know that I've ever felt comfortable at them, Abi, by the way. I don't know that I can quite relax. But I'm there knowing that things will make me go, ouch, and that therefore, but I won't sue. Do you know what I mean? And if I'm the butt of the joke, I can say, well, that's comedy for you.
But Abi, you know, the the much more traditional position of a BBC comedian these days is the likes of Nish Kumar and his comedy. I think it was from the far left, and obviously we saw him at that event getting bread rolls pelted at him because some people were just sick of him constantly pushing a political message in his comedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hectoring. I mean, I have to say as well, sorry, Claire...
Although he had free speech too, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he's free to say what he wants, but also free for people not to go and see him if they don't find him funny. But Claire's right. When I used the word relaxed, I think that maybe was a bit of a bit of a misstep. It's almost like you go to comedy because that is the place where you can be... It's kind of where you can have a communal experience that only the room of people that you're with can have, whether that's crossing the line or it being you know, sexual or whatever.
Shocked,
and then
offended, enthralled, but I do wonder, Abby, if the smartphone generation has changed things a little bit too, because when you're talking about cancellation, of course, the fact that people can bring in one of these to a gig and film you and potentially post it on Twitter and say Abi Roberts said this offensive joke and it offended X group of people. I mean, this is one of the reasons why comedians, as Darren says, are self-censoring, even the ones that maybe do want to make political points.
You're right, self-censoring is the real key here. That's where it starts to creep into the, you know, I don't want to get over-dramatic, but the kind of the Maoist Soviet thing, which is people not saying things. It's what people don't say rather than what they do say. And if people are thinking, I'll give you an example. There was a comedy night early last year, must have been actually before 2019, where I swear to God, the audience were given orange stickers if they wanted not to be spoken to, and green stickers if they did want to. And I was like, what is this, kindergarten? It's like, just sit at the back if you don't want me to kind of drip all over you with
Absolutely.
sweat.
I mean, by the way, I absolutely hate audience participation at any sort of show. I'm always like, please don't come to me. Dear God, don't come to me. But it's part of the fun of it, isn't it? It's what keeps you on the edge of the seat.